Hello.
Hey. I don't know who that is.
You know who that is?
No.
Who's your girlfriend or your baby mama? Lady right here.
First of all, that's my wife, Marler.
Okay.
Marler.
Okay.
And who?
Fatima.
Who are y'all looking for?
102. Can you go with the mother's name?
What's the problem?
So we're here on a welfare.
They didn't want this file to go public. You know, just like I know, that when a veteran gets blackballed for demanding basic respect, the system is protecting something far darker than one cop's bad attitude. We all knew this was never just about a welfare check. A 9-year Army sergeant, a man who served this country, opens his front door and is immediately disrespected, only to have the entire institution turn on him. The elite protect their own, and they don't want you to know how deep the rot really goes. Sergeant Syrah Hawkins stood on his porch in Suisun City, California on May 10, 2020, and faced down a badge that had forgotten its purpose. The officer didn't knock and announce a medical emergency. Instead, the first words out of his mouth were a sneering.
As the court detailed in the Jardines case, quote, to find a visitor knocking on the door is routine, even if sometimes unwelcome. To spot that same visitor exploring the front path with a metal detector or marching his bloodhound into the garden before saying hello and asking permission would inspire most of us to, well, call the police. The scope of a license is limited not only to a particular area, but also to a specific purpose. Applying this standard, lower courts have found certain police behaviors to exceed the scope of the implied license to knock at an individual's door without a warrant. For instance, in the 2022 case of Cupp versus Smith, the Northern District of California found that an officer exceeded the scope of the implied license to knock when he approached the garage area, entered the garage door, spoke with the homeowner's worker, walked through the carport, and took multiple photographs of the garage and surrounding area. Similarly,
About a baby mama? That is a spiritual wound. That is a direct assault on the sanctity of the family. And it triggered a righteous fire. We felt it. The sergeant demanded badge numbers. He asserted his God-given and constitutional right.
the Florida First District Court of Appeals held in the 2013 case of Powell versus State that an unconstitutional search occurred when police officers stepped off the front step of a mobile home and looked into a window they could not see through from the front step. The court explained that, quote, even when governmental agents are engaging in otherwise lawful knock and talks, they can exceed the scope of a reasonable visit to a front door or porch through physical actions that encroach into areas in which the resident has a reasonable expectation of privacy. But the decision also noted that, quote, under certain circumstances, implicit permission may exist to look through an uncurtained window while standing on a front porch momentarily to see whether the resident is approaching the door, assuming no unreasonable means or devices are used. In this situation,
be secure in his home, a place the Supreme Court has long called first among equals. But what happened next reveals how the justice system is rigged.
in this situation, while a court would almost certainly conclude that the officers did not violate Sergeant Hawkins' rights by knocking on the door to ask questions, it is less clear how a court would view the officers walking over to look in and knock on the front window under the walk and talk doctrine. However, as we will discuss later in this episode, a court would likely determine that this was not a violation of Sergeant Hawkins' Fourth Amendment rights under the exigent circumstances doctrine.
I don't know what that means.
Stop talking, let me talk.
I don't have to stop talking.
That ingested.
Why is he I don't like him. He's raising his voice at me right now.
Or nail polish. Okay.
Okay, so we're
we come here. Your baby's right there.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you. First of all, you came to my house and said, "Is that my girlfriend or my baby mama?" That's my wife. So that's disrespectful starting off.
All right, sir. So
that was disrespectful starting off, and then he's raising his voice at me.
Okay, I understand.
So now I can raise.
To shield the abusive elite, the disrespectful officer, after his partner tried to clean up his mess,
my family was here all day. We had a good day. You're here telling me to eat it.
It is. I don't know who the 14-year-old is.
Okay.
I don't either. I told you I did 9 years in the military.
Okay,
you told me to eat it. Okay. So thank you for telling me to eat it.
Please.
After I served you for 9 years, you
Marler.
Get the fuck off my property.
Well.
Marler.
I don't give. You were probably a piece. If you served and you telling people to eat, you probably was a piece.
All right.
You can get out of here. That's what you can do, Marler. You.
Okay, let me explain, because we may have been.
He told me to eat it.
Can I explain to you?
After Officer Marler directs a vulgar insult towards Sergeant Hawkins, Sergeant Hawkins becomes understandably enraged and begins to direct profanities back at Officer Marler. While Officer Marler's conduct was not criminal, his behavior was in clear violation of Suisun City Police Department policies. Policy 323, which details
returned to the door. He offered an apology, but the damage was done. The spirit of the household had been violated. The department then released a statement.
3, which details standards of conduct for officers in the department, lists discourteous, disrespectful, or discriminatory treatment of any member of the public, the use of obscene, indecent, profane, or derogatory language while on duty or in uniform, and any other conduct which any member knows or reasonably should know is unbecoming a member of this department or tends to reflect unfavorably upon this department or its members as potential causes for disciplinary action. It should also be noted that, as we have discussed many times on ATA, Sergeant Hawkins was well within his rights to express his displeasure with Officer Marler's conduct through the use of profanities and insults. And as the Supreme Court explained in the 1987 case of City of Houston versus Hill, quote, "The First Amendment protects a significant amount of verbal criticism and challenge directed at police officers."
Did you go to North Bay today?
What is that? Get in the house. What are y'all talking about? Nobody knows what you're
Calling it a learning opportunity, and the officer was released from his position. But was he quietly shuffled to a neighboring precinct to keep his pension? We've seen that ritualistic protection before. They sacrifice one public face to save the whole demonic machine, and the audience knows that a simple firing is never the end of the story. But what if I told you that in this ugly moment, the man they wanted to silence became an unlikely hero for a mass awakening? Sergeant Hawkins did not just protect his wife and children behind that door. He stood in the gap for every God-fearing middle-class family who feels targeted by an overreaching state. He was a legend in uniform who traded the battlefield for his own front porch. While the corporate media wants you to see an angry man shouting profanities, we see a soldier demanding the oath he took be honored by those who wear the badge. The Supreme Court clarified in City of Houston
related to police officers' so-called community caretaking function, which the Supreme Court defined in the 1976 case of Cady versus Dombrowski as police duties that are, quote, totally divorced from the detection, investigation, or acquisition of evidence relating to the violation of a criminal statute. Although the Cady decision involved a vehicle and did not apply to homes, after it was published, many lower courts interpreted the holding as creating a, quote-unquote, community caretaking
of the Suisun City Police Department. The incident report trails back to a call from North Bay Medical Center about a potential ingestion of nail polish remover. But think about that word, ingestion. Immediately, the framework is set to storm a home under the guise of exigent circumstances. They weaponize a medical miscommunication to breach your cartilage, stepping off the front path to peer into windows, just like the Florida First District Court of Appeals warned against in Powell versus State. You don't bring a metal detector to a doorstep, and you don't bring a profane interrogation to a military home. Chief Aaron Roth issued the public apology, but here is the breadcrumb that should keep you up at night. Official records remain mysteriously vague on whether Officer Marler was terminated or simply resigned.
Exception to the warrant requirement that allowed officers to enter homes without a warrant for a non-investigatory purpose, such as to prevent a suicide or to conduct a welfare check on an older individual who's been out of contact. However, the Supreme Court clarified in the 2021 case of Caniglia versus Strom that there is no standalone community caretaking exception to the warrant requirement for homes, and that officers cannot enter a home or the surrounding curtilage while performing a community caretaking function unless an exception to the warrant requirement applies. Still, many warrantless entries that had...
When a department refuses to clarify an officer's separation status, what are they hiding? Why deny the public the simple truth?
Previously been justified under the community caretaking doctrine could still be justified under the exigent circumstances doctrine, which, as Justice Kavanaugh explained in his concurring opinion, quote, allows officers to enter a home without a warrant in certain situations, including to fight a fire and investigate its cause, to prevent the imminent destruction of evidence, to engage in hot pursuit of a fleeing felon or prevent a suspect's escape, to address a threat to the safety of law enforcement officers or the general public, to render emergency assistance to an injured occupant, or to protect an occupant who is threatened with serious injury. Here, because the officers were responding to a call regarding a potential medical emergency, it is likely that a court would find that the exigent circumstances doctrine applied, and that the officers could look in the window or even enter the home if no one answered the door without violating the Fourth Amendment.
So
y'all want me to quote what statute you guys are violating? I'm not one of those people, but I'm pretty sure I can go on Google and see if
we
this
have
is
every
legal
right
what
to be
you
here
did.
to check on somebody, and you have the right to Google us.
This connects directly to the larger cultural moment where every institution has been weaponized against the traditional family. This isn't just a California problem. It is a war on spiritual authority. When you connect the dots from the FBI targeting parents at school board meetings to a local cop mocking a wife's status at her own door, the everything makes sense now moment hits you like a wave. The welfare check has become a magic phrase the elite use to bypass the Fourth Amendment, a ritual to intimidate the sleeping masses into compliance. They claim they are here to help a child, yet they poison the well by attacking the father who protects that child. Sergeant Hawkins turned on his camera and became a beacon of light. He forced millions to see that the justice system doesn't hate crime, it hates challenge. He exposed